My question is, though, is non-dual realization basically the resolving of my subjective vantage point into the objective appearance of being?
So, say it again. Is the non-dual
It's
understanding?
like the resolving of the subjective me, the perceiving me,
The dissolving of the subjective you, yeah.
into the objective appearance of being.
Okay.
As in the distinction of me or the appearance of me as a perceiving thing is the whole perception.
Yes. Is the non-dual understanding the dissolving of the subject into the object?
And then because you dissolve both, it's neither, it's what is.
Say this last bit again.
Because you're dissolving both, it's not subject or object, it's what is.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right, but I would formulate it the other way around, that it's the recognition, rather than the dissolving of the subject-object, the apparently finite mind that perceives the apparently finite world, rather than the dissolution of the subject-object relationship and the subsequent revelation of what is. It's the recognition of what is that dissolves the apparent distinction between the subject and an object. So it starts with the recognition of what is.
So, because there's no space between what is and what is.
Exactly. But because from the point of view, if we can call it a point of view of what is, that is being, from the point of view of being, being is the fundamental reality of all people, all animals, and all things. So from being's point of view, there are no individual people, animals, and things. That's only what we, as a person, a finite mind, say. From our point of view, we are a limited being that perceives a multiplicity and diversity of other beings and other things. That's just how it appears from our limited point of view. Subject, that's us, limited being, perceiving a multiplicity and diversity of objects. But from being's point of view, being is the substratum, the reality of everyone and everything. So from being's point of view, there's no subject and object. There's no diversity, there's no multiplicity. From the point of view of the character in the film, there are lots of other people and things, but from the point of view of the screen, it's just the screen. So it's the recognition, there is just the screen. That's the recognition of what is, the recognition of being. That it doesn't collapse the distinction between the subject and object, because there was no real distinction. It collapses the belief that the separate subject and object are real in their own right.
So how does the screen realize itself if it already is?
How does this?
The screen, like the screen of the movie, if that is always what is, and it's already being, and being already knows itself, what are we to do relative to how things appear? As in,
what are we to do?
With how things appear, like
how things appear. Okay.
I'm appearing here talking to
yes.
you, and I have a belief, even though it's not true, that I need to do something to be being.
Yes. Okay.
Which is absurd.
It is absurd.
Yeah.
Yes. You're right. But you know that it's absurd. So.
But like I'm suffering still.
Yes.
So it's
so
like
what you need to do is, we used to think the earth was flat. Why? Because our sense perceptions seemed to suggest that it was. But then when we looked more deeply into it, we realized that our sense perceptions gave us false information. Our sense perceptions were wrong. And then we used to believe that the sun went round the earth. Why? Because the sun rises in the east and it sets in the... It seems obvious to us that the sun... But then we looked into it more clearly and that we realized that the evidence of sense perceptions were faulty. Well, exactly the same. Now, our sense perceptions seem to tell us that reality is constituted of separate people and things, each with their own individual being. So again, it's just the erroneous evidence of sense perception. You have to look through or past the evidence of sense perception. We should not use sense perception to derive our model of reality. Sense perception is like a filter, a pair of glasses that we put on that refracts the unity of being and makes it appear as 10,000 things. So we should not use sense perception to derive our knowledge of reality. And that is why all the great religious and spiritual traditions encourage us to turn inward, that is, away from the evidence of sense perception. You can't get to reality directly looking through the senses. You can't see white snow when you look through orange-tinted glasses. You have to go inwards, so to speak, not really into it, into our deepest experience, and find that one experience that is not mediated by the finite mind.
Which is I am.
Which is I am, exactly. I am, exactly. The only experience there is that is not mediated through thought or perception is the experience of being, which is what we refer to when we say I am. It is. So the I am is like a portal through which we in fact pass out of the mind into infinite being, and that is our only access to reality, unmediated reality. So that's it's why sooner or later all scientists who want to know the nature of reality will have to turn their attention away from sense perception and go into the deepest recesses of their mind, go through the portal that has I am written above it, and to access that one experience that's not mediated through thought or perception.
So within this framework, what is sense perception in and of itself?
Sense perception is itself a modulation of consciousness, because it's not imposed from consciousness from the outside. There's nowhere outside consciousness that sense perception would come from. It is sense perception itself, it is consciousness itself that rises in the form of sense perception, and in doing so refracts itself and makes it appear as the universe. So sense perception is the means by which consciousness brings the potential that lies, the infinite potential that lies within it, but which has no form of its own. Sense perception is the means by which consciousness brings that potential out of the formless into manifestation.
As the infinite being the finite, or viewing of the finite?
The infinite appears as the finite when it is mediated through sense perception. So sense perception is the means by which consciousness creates. Prior to sense perception, prior to thought and perception, there's just the formless infinite. It's a realm of infinite potential, but there's no form there, there's nothing, there's no creativity, there's no manifestation there. If it wants to manifest its potential in form, it needs the finite mind to do it through. It has to do it through perception. So it's consciousness itself that rises in the form of perception, and in doing so it brings manifestation out of potential into existence.
And would you say that the refactoring is by consciousness reflecting upon itself?
Can you say that again?
Like the refactoring into finite form, that is because of consciousness' self-reflective nature. Like if I reflect on I am, there becomes other. And then if I reflect on I am and other, I just get infinite layers of appearance.
If I've understood you correctly, when consciousness assumes the form of perception, it seems to create a boundary around itself. You imagine a white sheet of paper. If you were to draw a circle on that white sheet of paper, the circle would be our sense perceptions, which seems to cut off a little bit of the infinite white paper, and now the white paper is bounded within the circle of perception. That's the finite mind. So that finite mind, that the white paper inside the circle, that's our seemingly finite consciousness. The only thing it can, if the white paper inside the circle looks out through the circle, everything it perceives will appear in accordance with the perceiving faculties of the circle. So the only way the white paper inside the circle can know reality is to turn round away from the evidence of sense perception and investigate itself.
So I guess a more accurate question would be, how is the finite mind emerging? Or is that just, we don't care about that, or just...
How does the finite mind emerge?
Yeah.
Well, it's consciousness itself that, first of all, takes the form of perceiving, and in doing so refracts itself. And then it adds another faculty, thinking, which then names each of those 10,000 things, thereby substantiating the illusion of separation and otherness.
And then the perceiving, how does that emerge? Or is that just an appearance that appears?
We could call it the activity of consciousness. It is consciousness vibrating within itself.
Got it. Yeah.
And that's something you can check in your experience, because if you take one of your, by perceiving I mean seeing, hearing, touching, tasting and smelling, but just take one of your perceiving faculties, for instance hearing. You can do this experiment with yourself, or you can do it with touching your hand on the mic, and you go deeply into the experience of hearing. Or let's do it with your hand on the mic. If you go deeply into that experience and you try to isolate the experience. Imagine it's the first thing you've ever experienced. You know nothing about it. You don't know it's a hand and a mic and so on. You go deeply into that experience. All you'll find there is knowing. Knowing is the substance out of which sensing and indeed seeing, hearing, touching, tasting and smelling is made. So the consciousness is the stuff out of which all our sense perceptions are made.
And then non-dual realization is the knowing of knowing.
Perfect. So knowing of knowing. Knowing only knowing.
Thank you.
That's it.